All right, let's be honest. Did we or did we not set a New Year's resolution? Because happy 2026. And for those of you who celebrate, I feel like I kind of have this mixed bag of community, people who still, do New Year's resolutions and celebrate a lot of those things. But I do have a part of my community that actually are much more tuned in or participate more in kind of the 13-month lunar cycle, or kind of follow a little bit more of like seasonality as far as what they celebrate and things like that. So it's very fascinating to me because this time of year, believe it or not, which is probably why a lot of your resolutions are not working, is that this time of year is not actually for making resolutions. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. We are in the middle of the winter period, which winter, when you think about it seasonally, is a time of rest. It's a time of hibernation. It's actually not a time to be setting new goals. So in that sense, it always kind of feels a little counterintuitive, I think, for a lot of reasons, which I feel like that would take a couple episodes. But it's really that we're coming kind of off of this high of a holiday. And so it's how do we not slip back into, as a society, things where we actually want to rest and this forced productivity, so to speak. So something that I find really fascinating is this time of year is not necessarily setting New Year's resolutions or New Year's goals. I think it's a much better place to actually assess what has and has not been working in the past year. So you're not necessarily trying to change anything. It's actually more of a time of reflection. And this, I think, is a lot more beneficial and actually goes with the season and this time period. Especially in like traditional Chinese medicine, things like that. Like this time period is not meant actually for a lot of activity and a lot of new ideas and that type of more spring-like energy. That comes a bit later. So that's something that you want to kind of lean into a little bit more in the February, March, leaning into kind of March when it actually is springtime. So it's almost like kind of the prepping would happen in more of the February and the January time period, where most people are trying to set a new goal. And then usually about 2 weeks in is when people fall off. I don't know if you knew that, but it doesn't last. It's funny because I think it's like 13 days is usually about how long people last in their New Year's resolutions. And so what about, instead of doing it like that, what if you set yourself up for success in a different way? That this time period, right? If you've already said, hey, I'm going to do this for the new year, all right, no harm, no foul. Keep your resolution, keep your thing. But also understand that if your goal was to, let's say, lose 15 pounds or something like that, and you're like, hey, that's my New Year's resolution. What if instead you were like, okay, here's the system I've been living by for 2025 as far as food, nutrients, movement, nervous system regulation. And what if instead it was that this time period, you're like, okay, I'm focusing on my health this year. The first thing I'm going to look at is losing some weight, which includes changing my system that I'm using for food and nutrition. So it's not that there's something wrong with me, I need to change it, or I have this new goal. It's that this is going to be the thing that gets a little bit more love and attention for, let's say, the next 3 months, right? In this kind of hibernation or this time period where you're kind of more, not even really planting the seeds, but it's almost like you're giving the soil rest. I don't know if you knew this, but you actually need to rest. You rest fields when you are doing farming. You don't plow and plant every single season in fields. It's typically around 2 years that you kind of give that field a rest and you rotate, because you'll deplete literally the nutrients in the soil that is necessary to grow healthy crops. And we are a part of nature. And so it's interesting that we never think we need rest time. And it's like your body naturally wants to rest anyways around the holidays, right? It's getting darker earlier. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, myself included. I kind of made the joke that like my circadian rhythm is so on point that when it hits like 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay, guys, it's time for bed. Let's pack it in for the evening. We're done. Like, and it's almost like a kind of forcing myself to stay awake for a little bit longer. And that is because this time period is for those things. So what if instead I'm proposing this thing that we do, instead of setting this goal and having all of this energy of like, I'm going to go get it and all these things? What if instead it was a lot more reflective and we looked at things that, one, were working or not working the year before, and two, how is my nervous system? Do I actually have the capacity to make these changes? And I think that's the biggest difference that most people are missing, is that they're making these New Year's resolution goals and they're making these like quote unquote changes in their mind that they want to have for their life. So then they want to take action on them. The problem is their nervous system is actually not ready for that amount of change. And that is a hard pill to swallow, because as much as you may be unhappy with your weight or the money that you're making or whatever you're doing for your business or your health, I see time and time again, people come to me and they want all these things, but their nervous system is so dysregulated that when you are in a state of fight or flight, when you are highly, highly activated, right? You're in sympathetic dominance, and all that means is fight or flight. When you are that way, your body is actually not primed for change. And so if you're sitting here and you've just gone through this season where there's more activities, typically it's like, more holiday parties, more sugars, more sweets, more alcohol. There's all these extra responsibilities of like buying gifts, or a lot of times it's a lot more family dynamics. You are actually more stressed out during the holidays. And you can have wonderful moments. You can have all of these beautiful things of get-togethers and stuff like that. However, you are more activated during this time. And so to go straight from this space of being highly activated and highly like having to be a little bit more hyper vigilant, you go straight into this space where you're trying then to create a goal. Your body is like, absolutely not. Well, no wonder things don't last more than 13, 14 days into the new year. Your body hasn't actually recovered from the sense of sympathetic dominance that it was in for weeks. And you're just pushing it into basically something else to be hypersensitive and hyper attuned to, of like watching everything that you eat, forcing all these extra things. Your nervous system does not have the capacity. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying as a general consensus, and kind of what I see in my practice when people come in, is that during this time period, you need to almost be like taking, like, instead of setting a New Year's resolution, you need to take a list and be like, okay, what really worked well for me this year? And maybe my suggestion is always to categorize it into a few different things. So things where it's like personal or like self-care, things like that. The next would be business. And then the next would be like health or things of that nature. So to me, self-care is not just health. Are we taking time to do saying no? Are we taking time to go to doctor's appointments? Are we taking time to engage with friendships and different things like that? To me, that is self-care. Do I have a good sleep hygiene? All of those things. Health is a little bit different. I feel like health-wise, you're like, okay, am I eating what I need to be eating? What's the quality of my food like? What is my movement patterns and things like that? It is self-care, but to me, it's a little bit of a different realm. And the nice part is, this is something that I noticed about myself, is that because I work a lot, either virtual or one-on-one, I don't have like a workplace where it's a lot of community. So I actually found that a lot of my community and a lot of that connection time worked for me if it was also at the gym. So I teach yoga 1 or 2 days a week, and I have for several years now. And I taught it at the same place that I worked out at for years. So it really kind of worked out for me that I recognized how much I needed community, and that was a part of my wellness. That was a part of, again, think of self-care more of like the mind, things like that. And then I think of health as more of like my physical body. So I kind of separate those two of like mind, energy, spirit. And then I also deal with the physical. So I'm not necessarily negating one or the other. And I'm not really lumping it all into one, because I think then it gets a little too complex. And sometimes it feels like there's so many tasks. So if you can kind of separate it into 3 piles, right? Business, maybe relationships for you. So maybe you didn't focus on relationships, or you're single and are wanting to find a partner or something like that. So you need to find 3 piles that work for you. I'm married. We have a really great relationship. I have a lot of great friendships. So that bucket doesn't really need, I was like, okay, a lot of that stuff's working. I don't really need to assess that very much. But these other 3 buckets are where I need to look at. So I say, pick 3 categories, okay? And then from there, you're going to assess and just be like, what really worked well for me this year? You're going to look at things like business-wise, like what brought you the most amount of clients, what brought you the most amount of income, what grew your network the most. Was it in-person stuff? Was it creating content online? Was it one platform or another? So looking at those types of things. And then you're going to look at, okay, health-wise, what worked well for me? I'm like, okay, even though I wasn't overly motivated to like, in the past, I was like really pushing to hit like some PRs, weight training and things like that, or I was really looking to be able to do a certain posture in yoga or things like that. This year felt a lot more like I just want to kind of maintain what I have. I actually didn't want to grow any muscle, not to say any, I just wanted to maintain like kind of my structure, my muscle that I had. I wasn't looking to like push and make gains and all that. I just wanted to maintain. I had a lot on my plate. I was finishing my doctorate. And so what worked really well for me was actually, instead of weight training 5 days a week, I bumped it down to 3 or 4 days. And that worked well for me. It gave me a lot more flexibility, and it allowed me to add in like 1 or 2 more yoga classes or like a Zumba class or something that was a little bit more fun, a handstand class, for example. I was trying to hit those at least once or twice a month. That way I could practice handstands and have a little, more like tools in my tool belt to practice handstands outside of it and arm balances. For me, that worked so much better. My mobility increased. I maintained weight, and a lot of that actually had to do with diet, which was another component of that. So I'm like, okay, what really worked well for me? And what did I notice? I had no problem sticking to my workout schedule because I wasn't constantly pushing there. That wasn't the year for those things. I was pushing other places. And so assessing right now, okay, what is working? I need to keep doing those things. And then think about, okay, what if I could add in something, or if I could remove something, then what would I do? So honestly, I would look at it a little bit more like that, of really assessing it. It's almost like fine-tuning your life. You're not creating a whole new person. What you're trying to do is keep the parts of you and the parts of your life that are really working for you, that feel really good, that feel really expansive. And then on the opposite side, you're like, okay, how can I basically prune away the things that have not been working for me? So maybe you ate out more than you normally do. I know that was it for me. We were just very, very busy this year, lots of travel, finishing up my doctorate for a majority of the year. I had no bandwidth for cooking. I was like, nothing sounds good. Like I was like, ugh, I don't even care. Not only do I not cook, I really just want to eat food and move on with my life, which led to a lot more processed foods than normal, which is interesting because I was like, here I am going to get my doctorate for natural medicine, and I'm actually like eating more processed foods. I'm eating less healthy than when I wasn't in school. And a lot of that, I think this is what's so common when they talk about like the freshman 15, or when you change jobs or change parts of your life that you have to then make other adjustments for, is that we are so hard on ourselves. Why did, I've gained so much weight, blah, 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 since starting this job. I'm like, yes, because it maybe requires more time than it did before, or you're learning something new. So literally your brain can only do so many things and can only learn and ingest so many things at one time. And so when you're starting a new job or starting a new relationship or things like that, like other things have to take a back seat. Not everything can be the leader. So I find one that I always start with, what is working and what isn't. And then I look at, okay, what do I want to prune away? That I'm not going through and being like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do that. I'm not taking everything, but it's like small things, like things that I'm like, okay, things that didn't work for me. For example, in business is, I kind of realized this late in the year. So I've already done some pruning, but it was creating content that was there was more production in it. It required me to have like a light, a room, a microphone, like all of that does not work for me. Not that I can't do it, not that I don't enjoy those things, but I recognize like when there's a production value or, this added, just basically just stuff to being able to create content for Instagram or for TikTok, I would avoid it. And so a way for me that I recognized, I was like, okay, I need to let that go. And so I started doing a lot more just face to camera stuff. And I really started out over on TikTok doing a lot more of that. and it's gone really well for me, for my business. It's gained a lot of traction. I've gained, almost like 3,000 new followers in the past like 3 months, which is crazy and really cool. And I recognized that what wasn't working was requiring so much to be ready to do it, to have my hair done, my makeup done, whatever it was. And I was like, that doesn't work for me. And so I had started putting those away, and I'm already seeing the results. So it's like small things like that, adjusting. You're like, okay, another thing that doesn't work for me as far as nutrition is I have to prep some of these things at the beginning of the week, whether it be if I'm going to make some chicken or some vegetables or whatever it is, but I actually need to prep some of that, things that can be made into several meals. I don't need to prep exact meals and segregate them into these little containers and all that, but I do need to have things that are easy to throw together because I need variety, but not necessarily variety in what I need to be able to throw a different sauce with it or put the chicken on my salad or whatever it is. And I wasn't doing that. And so again, a lot of my habits of grabbing something quickly resulted in a lot more processed things. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to add in the simple prep that I was doing to just be ready for the rest of the week. And I was like, that alleviates so much snacking and process for me. And it's a simple thing. It really doesn't take me time, a slow cooker, stuff like that, like you're done, super easy. And so it's like thinking about these small things that it's not a huge shift for you, but it's something that you can change. And I recommend only making one of those small shifts a month. If you do one small shift a month, whether it be health, business, relationships, whatever it is, and you do that one thing consistently for a month, it will start to feel so much more normal to your nervous system and you're not overwhelming it with too many things. It's very important that you understand when you're making changes, it needs to be from a place of love, connection, honestly, curiosity, growth, inspiration. You're not being inspired all the time, but when you're making some of these changes and you're making resolutions and they're based on guilt, you feel, this is really important, you feel guilt, you feel shame, you feel pressured or resentment or this need to kind of keep up with other people or whatever those things are, this comparison. When your body is in that state and you're trying to make those changes, do you think that it is actually going to last? No, because you're sitting in this state of criticism of yourself. And so you're doing this with this sense of, I'm not good enough. And so part of the reason why I like the reflection part in the beginning is it allows you to see and assess things that you're already doing well. And that's really important to put you in this state of seeing the positivity, seeing potential, seeing growth, seeing achievement. And then it becomes that you're a lot less critical as you kind of go down the line of some of these small shifts. So what I'll do is I'll kind of alternate, like 1 month, it'll be a little bit more of like a health focus. The next month, I will keep and maintain that, but then I'll add in a small business shift. So then I'll go through and I'll have like, okay, these are some of the things that I want to shift during the year. These are some of the things that I want to add in. And I'll make a list. And I'm not doing all of those all at once, but I recognize as I reflect on the past year, that the past year has shown me where there are holes or things that just aren't working well for me anymore. And it doesn't mean anything about me, but I recognize like I don't feel my best self when I'm doing these things. So what would make me feel more like my best self? Implementing, again, like some of this prep work on the weekend. Not hard, used to do it all the time, did it for years, just got out of the habit. Okay, I know how long it takes me. That's not going to be that hard. I can do that. Okay, well, I'm going to do that then in January. Okay, and then in February, I'm going to do, and I kind of map it out like that rather than being one giant thing to like kick off the new year. I give myself these small little shifts throughout the entire year. You'll see that as you start to add those things up and as they start to compound, it's almost like a snowball. It kind of creates this momentum. And I find that it is a lot more regulating and it allows me to make these changes and be more consistent. Because then when I fall off or something happens or I don't do it that day, then what happens is I look back and it's like, it's no big deal. These are small shifts that I'm making. I didn't do it one day. Fine. we'll just do it tomorrow. No big deal. Like it becomes less like demoralizing and there's less shame involved in that, which is really, really important to rid your life, because shame comes from what you believe other people think about you or what other people make you feel about yourself. Your reflection of yourself in other people, the words that they say and things like that, and how you're reflected back from other people in the world. And so we don't want to be creating changes in our life based on other people's approval, based on other people's values, based on other people's truths. And when you're making some of these resolutions that are these big things because like, oh, I can't believe I gained so much weight, or oh, my business didn't grow, it's doing this, it's doing that. You have to get out of that state of sensing consistently that something is wrong with you. And that's why this is such a powerful shift to do, of just really reflecting. This is the perfect time to do this. Wintertime is the perfect time for reflection. It is to slow down. You can't always be going at 100 miles an hour. Businesses, people burn to the ground when you do that, when it's constantly go and you don't have any season of reflection. You also can't, when you've hired an employee that's not doing what they should be doing, or they're not actually moving the needle forward in your business, because you're just moving on to the next thing and you're like, whatever, it's fine. Like you won't take the time to fire them. You won't take the time to assess their productivity or what they're bringing to the table or things like that. In your health, if you're constantly just pushing, typically what happens is your nervous system is very dysregulated. You are super high cortisol a lot of times because you're doing things that are extreme. You're doing HIIT workouts, you're doing extreme calorie deficit, you're drinking a ton of coffee, you're doing the vibrating, you're adding in all these things. You don't need everything all at once. Make small shifts. For instance, I got an infrared sauna. I call it a sauna sack, but I love it. It's from Higher Dose. I can actually link it in the show notes, but it's phenomenal. It looks like a sleeping bag. You slip into it and it's infrared heat. And it's really good for inflammation. Knowing that there's been a lot more going on, a lot more just kind of added stressors of my life, I can feel that I'm a little bit more inflamed. Instead of trying to say, I'm going to do that every day, I recognize that makes me feel better. And my joints feel better in my clothes, my skin looks better, like all of these things. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to add in twice a week, 20 minutes. A lot of times I'll do this while I'm watching TV or listening to a book, but instead of saying I'm going to do it every day and I'm going to do it for 40 minutes and making it this extreme goal, I really narrowed it down. I'm going to do it at least twice a week. If I can fit in 3, great, for 20 minutes. And when that becomes very normal, your body starts to crave it. I feel like this about movement. I've exercised 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I move every single day. And whether it's a longer walk, whether it's yoga, whether it's lifting weights, Pilates, just dancing around my office to a couple of songs, movement is involved every single day because I recognize the value that it brings to not just my body, but it clears my mind. It helps my spirit just feel like happier, lighter, things like that. And so what once was really hard for me to do, now my body craves it. And so when you do some of these things that are, again, these small shifts instead of these life overhauls that people try and do at New Year's time, you start to actually implement these small things that your body will crave. Your body will want to do it because it actually feels better. And that's because, again, the nervous system feels comfortable and safe implementing this change. If it doesn't, it will find ways to avoid it, to push it away, to avoid that experience, because too much change is also severely dysregulating. So it's assessing like what went well, what do I have the capacity for this next year? I do not have the capacity to do this in my business and watch what I'm eating and all this stuff at the same time. It requires a level of care and consideration that, not that I can't do both, but I'm either going to have to pay for support one area or the other if I'm going to make both of these my goals. So I can either focus on one and let the other one just kind of hold and maintain, and then focus on the other one. This is why I like having several shifts that you're going to make throughout the year, and then going through and implementing a month by month, rather than trying to do this like big change. it's a lot more sustainable. And again, your nervous system can regulate and make these things feel more normal for you so that you can create the change that you want over this past year. Think about it more of, again, it's long term. It's not just for January. These are a lot of the things that you're trying to make for your life. Make them sustainable. Don't try to overhaul your whole life. So I hope this was really valuable for you. Again, take your time to do some reflection, get your 3 kind of like columns or your 3 kind of pots that you're working, and write down the things that are working well. And then write down at least 3 shifts that you would make in each pile, right? Whether that be self-care, that be relationships, that be business, that be maybe investing, whatever those piles are that you want to kind of assess for the year. And then give yourself things that you can come back to over the year and make it something that it's easy for you to see. I always put it in my notes app and I pin it. So I have about 10 pin notes, and it's things like content ideas for the podcast. I have one that tasks that need to be done. I think I've done actually a whole podcast on this before, of how I set up my notes app to get things done that's efficient for somebody who's got a lot of ideas and moves very quickly. I set it up by quarters. I have, when ideas come to me for offers, I have a space for that. I have a out of stock list that's shared with my family, a shared note, and that's pinned to that, so that all of the things that I need to make my life more efficient is ready and easy to access. So things like this, when you're doing something monthly, put it somewhere that it's easy for you to access. I feel like you either need to put it up somewhere where you can physically see it on a paper, or put it someplace where you visit often so you're reminded of these things. And it's almost like you could even set a timer, an event in your calendar, like, hey, check in with your shifts for the year, things like that, so that you have some way to be accountable. Like, is this working? Things like that, so that every month you're almost like recalibrating rather than trying to make these huge shifts that your nervous system does not feel ready for and often rejects. We want these things that you're wanting for yourself to be something that's sustainable, that's long-term, and over the year, you'll see huge progress. So let me know if you listen to this podcast and you did these things. Let me know how it works for you. Let me know some of the things I want to know. What are some of the things that you're shifting this year? What did your reflection time look like? Please find me on Instagram, on TikTok, send me a message at Dr. Shalane Carter. I love to hear all about it, and I personally answer all of my DMs. I read them, leave me a voice memo, I listen to them. And this is, again, the podcast is a great way for me to be able to connect with you, but I really want you to also connect with me. So come find me on there. Let me know how it worked. And again, if you have people that are sharing, you're like, hey, we're going to do a vision boarding workshop. Maybe you bring this as an idea of like, hey, maybe we do a little bit of like 30 minutes of reflection before we do the vision board. Let me know how it works. I would love to hear it. And if you have not already, please make sure that you subscribe so that you're notified every time there's a new podcast. It drops every single Tuesday. We have some phenomenal guests lined up for 2026. I'm just really stoked. We recorded some of these podcast episodes in December, and I was like itching to release them. So I think you're going to love them. And I can't wait to just see all the transformation that happens for you over the next year. Please keep me posted on all the things that you're doing. I love to see it. I love to be a part of it. I love to support you. I'm even going on a retreat with one of my clients as a participant, which is really, really fun. Instead of leading a retreat, I'm enjoying and showing up. So I love to support all of your businesses and all of your endeavors as well. So keep me in the loop. And until next time, cheers, everybody.